computer.
They close at 6.
Good evening, everyone. This is IMG Research Academy. In IMG Research Academy, we hold scientific sessions where we discuss various components of clinical research. One of the ones we're going to discuss today is the structure of a research paper. And before this, we had an ordinary session where we listened to Reverend Martin Luther King, and he talked about whatever you want to do it so well that even the living, the dead, and the unborn couldn't do it as much as you do. And if you are called to sweep streets, sweep by terms, sweep it so well like Michelangelo painted. Today we have someone amongst our midst, a doctor from Harvard Medical Center. He's a psychiatrist. He's done a lot in the clinical research realm, apart from his works in psychiatry. I was going through his profile and he has done close to 68 publications and counting. Wow. He's a genius in our time. Dr. Onyeka, you're welcome to our show. It's a scientific session and everybody's going to ask you questions. We're going to start with simple question and answers. If you want to talk, or however pattern you want to go, tell us, what is actually a research paper? You can also first tell us about yourself, your journey, and where you are, to motivate people, because in this academy, we want to motivate everybody. We want to end up seeing ourselves, all of us in this group, at the top of affairs, so that one day when I get to 68, I could give a call to Dr. Shima or Dr. Elizabeth and say, hey, can we meet in White House? The president wants to talk to senior scientists in the country, and we'll be there. That's my dream someday. Or Novartis is trying to build a team of knowledgeable people. Dr. Onyeka, tell us your story before we jump into what is a research paper?
Okay, so Dr. Kobe, thank you for having me here, and thank you everybody for making time to tune in to this session. It's a loaded question. Where do I start from? But first of all, Dr. Kobe, I think I want to thank you for this. The turnout is amazing, 84 people and counting. And thank you for the work that you do for the IMG community. It's such an amazing platform that you put together. A little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Nigeria. From the eastern part, Anambra State, Agwata local government. I grew up in so many different states, Cross River, Lagos, moved to Ghana when I was 16, completed med school at Kwame Nkrumah University. And as most of us here, did house job and, worked as a medical officer. And then an opportunity came to come to the US to do a master's in public health. And I came, wrote my exams, applied like everyone is hoping and anticipating to do. Currently, I'm in PGY3 at the Mass General Hospital, Harvard Medical School Psychiatry program. It's been a long journey. I have been fortunate to be blessed with amazing mentors. God has been helpful, and just some luck and hard work and dedication. So I'm currently in my PGY3. I'm passionate about digital mental health, global mental health, addiction, and also lifestyle medicine. And it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm happy to address any questions related to research. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So we're jumping into the topic of today, the structure of your research paper. I mean, before anything has a structure, we need to know what it is. What is a scientific paper? You've written over 68 plus counting.
Yeah, so it's actually a very important question. What a paper is, people use different terms. You would hear sometimes manuscript, an article, a draft, or a preprint. So basically, a research paper is any body of work that has been written and has undergone a process where there has been peer reviews and edits, and is then submitted to sort of like a publishing house or a journal that then gets it online and available to the scientific community and to the public. When people use these terms, like you would hear, as people do research, you're going to hear, oh, I have 5 manuscripts, I have 5 papers, or I have 5 articles. At the stage in which you're writing a paper and you have all your results, you've done your analysis, the paper is ready to be submitted. At that stage, what we call it is a draft. And so you would hear, if you work for, if you're a clinical researcher, and your boss says, hey, can I have the first draft by next week? So that first draft is the form in which your research is at. You've written out everything, your tables are all in, your figures are all in, your methods, introduction, discussion, it's ready to be submitted. It hasn't been submitted yet. At that point, we call it a draft. The moment you choose a journal and throw it into the journal, it becomes a manuscript. And so back and forth, you go with the journals, they'll give you a manuscript ID number, and the manuscript moves through peer review. Now, after peer review, you could be accepted with revisions, major or minor revisions. It could be accepted. It could be rejected. It could be accepted straight up, just like that. When it becomes accepted, it then moves into press. What that means is that, so sometimes you see some people write on their CV, this paper is in press, meaning that it has been accepted by the journal, and they're just doing editing and copy editing before they would then publish it online. The moment it then becomes published, accepted by the journal, and after peer reviews and becomes published, it becomes a paper. Another name for another name for a paper is an article. So people would say research article or research paper. They're both the same thing. But as you move along the process from a draft to a manuscript, so you then get to a paper or an article. I hope that has, in my blabbing there, I hope I was able to answer that question.
Absolutely. So when you were talking, because our concept is to demystify some of these things, so it becomes very easy for everybody to listen. We hear this term peer review sounds so heavenly. What is peer-reviewed paper, and how is it different? What is peer review? What does it mean?
Yeah. Okay. So what happens is, so we are all right now. Let's assume we are on the side where we are trying to write a paper and submit it to a journal. Now I'm going to flip this environment. We are now on the journal. We're now on the journal side. We are the editors and we are the reviewers. That's what we all are here. So let's say, Dr. Kobe, you're the editor. A paper comes in on the impact of COVID-19 vaccination on the impact of COVID vaccines on maybe COPD exacerbation. And you know that you have a couple of people who are pulmonologists, intensivists, internists who are here. You have people who are infectious disease specialists on this peer review panel, right? They usually, send these papers out to reviewers who are in like large, basically any academic institution that have done work in that area, that has published a lot in that area. There is a leader or an expert in COVID-19 vaccination or COPD. Now these reviewers are then given these papers. So these reviewers are then sent these papers and, the manuscript. Just to be specific here, at this point, it's still a manuscript. And so these reviewers get the manuscript and then they sort of like vet your work. They make sure that your work is going to add to the scientific literature. Your work is going to add to what we already know. The work is going to be something that is very informative or even timely. And so they look at your methods. Sometimes they run it through a statistician to double check your work. And sometimes you actually even submit your data where sometimes they would also rerun your analysis to ensure that the results are replicable. And they then make a decision and say, hey, in your introduction, you use this reference from 2009. I think it's 2023, 14 years ago. It's too long. It's better you use newer references. So their job is to actually strengthen the paper and give you ideas. Or when they don't accept the paper, they might give you ideas of how to expand it. They might say, you know what, collect more data. You only have 50 sample. Your sample size was only 50. You want to collect more survey and add more sample size and improve the power of your study. Or they might say, you know what, it's a great paper. It doesn't suit what our journal, the scope of our journal, it doesn't suit us. This journal is Journal of Asthma. It has nothing to do with COPD and COVID vaccine. So we are going to recommend you submit it to another journal. So these are some of the possible outcomes. But the peer reviewers are experts, peers, that are, that are leaders in that field, in those topics, and they look at it and basically to vet it and make sure that, the scientific community is getting something that is really, really strong.
Absolutely. So in this, because the format of this presentation is question and answer, and we want people to also ask a question when we're done with these lead questions. So many people here are actually in one phase of either in residency, applying for fellowship, or getting into residency, or finishing medical school, or there are some people that are doing masters. And you have people from India, from Canada, majority of them are in the US, and some are in Nigeria. How does getting a paper impact your journey, in your trajectory in wherever you are? I know you are far ahead in the game, so you stand in a better podium to tell us this is the benefit of having an article in your application or in your package.
Dr. Kobe, the way you hype me, I'm still learning. I'm still learning, but I'll share some of what I've realized. The funny thing about research so far, like all my engagement and activities, is that I have learned so much beyond just writing a paper. I have learned how to network. I have learned how to collaborate with people that I've never met before.
Teamwork.
I've learned teamwork. I've learned patience. I've learned that I'm not a good writer, and every time I write something and it comes back, I'm like, wow, did I really write that nonsense? And so I've learned a lot about myself. On the more tangible side, I've learned how to do data analysis. Research has put me in touch with so many people that I never thought I would be able to get their emails, not even not to talk about their phone numbers.
Yes, I'm a witness to that.
Yeah, and so what I would say to people is, it's an opportunity. Like, even if you don't have this grand idea to be a great researcher in the future, this opportunity, this journey is so you learn so much about life, right? And so the impact of a paper is all of these things, right? So I would, when I started writing, my first paper was, this is how it really helped me. So my first paper was during grad school. I was doing epidemiology biostats, and I realized a lot of the times they would give us assignments where you had to analyze the data set, write your methods, and give a brief summary of a discussion. And so one day, one guy was like, look, this is almost like a paper. We can actually submit this stuff for like an abstract to a conference and go present it. And I bought into that. And after I came up to my mentor, and he's like, yeah, sure, let's submit it. If it gets accepted, I would pay for you to travel. I'll get my funding to get, So through that now, I started knowing about conferences, right? And I got the chance to get funded to fly somewhere and attend the conference and present my findings. I get to the conference, I'm presenting my findings. Every people are walking past, program directors, senior residents, PhD, researchers. People are coming by, oh, tell me about this, tell me about it. Oh, wow, which data set did you use? And through that, I made so much, there was just so much contact. People gave me their cards. And then, application season, got a couple of interviews, and you get to your interview and someone says, oh, you worked with this person on this paper? He used to be my mentee, or he used to be my mentor. And you can imagine all the anxiety. Back then, interviews were in person, so you can imagine all the anxiety where you're anxious and you're nervous, and you go in and the person is like smiling and telling you about this other, one of your mentors on your paper. And it just made it so cool. And then they will definitely call and talk amongst themselves. And so a paper goes just beyond what you have on your CV, right? It also connects you. Very, very important. As the season gets more competitive, and from the motivational speech we just heard, you want to do it and do it well. I think having some research there demonstrates to the programs and to everybody who grabs your CV that you are interested in scholarly activity. You are interested in scholarly activity, and it's really, really, it's very useful. Sometimes two candidates similar profiles, similar scores, and you have more publications, and it's a program that are very heavy on research, that might just do the trick for you. Beyond that, you can actually identify a passion that you want to pursue. And so many people have moved on in their careers, finished residency, and stayed back in academic institutions, applying for grants, and making a real change in the world in terms of science and medicine.
Absolutely. Now that we've finished the periphery, let's go into the more deeper details. So I don't know anything about research. Let's assume I don't know anything about research, and I want to write a paper. What is the anatomy of a typical paper? I know there are different types of papers. There's case report, there's retrospective analysis, there's prospective designs, but I mean, they all have almost similar anatomy. What is a typical anatomy? I'm just a complete novice. I don't know anything.
Yeah, I was once, I was once there where, I didn't even know how to even start it, but it depends. It depends. I say that with a smile on my face, because a lot of the times in residency, they ask you a question, you're not really sure how to answer. You say, it depends, and you give different scenarios and you explain it. But there are different types of research papers or research articles. And so we have, I'll just give a brief statement about each of them. So we have like original or empirical research. You have case reports. You have short communications or brief reports. Some journals refer to them as correspondence. You have perspectives or views. Some journals call them opinions. What other form do we have? What other thing do we have? And then you can have systematic reviews, narrative reviews. So it depends, right? But if we take, for example, if we take the typical original research paper where we are trying to run a cross-sectional study amongst all the IMGs on this, all the participants on this platform, and we are trying to find out what factors determined, what factors helped in them making the decision to attend this conference today. And then maybe the context of our research is trying to see factors that, how research can help, how can IMGs get more exposure to research? That's our big topic, right?
Right.
So the typical structure of such a paper would, we start with our title, factors that motivate IMGs to participate more in clinical research. That's our title of our paper.
Okay.
Then the next, when you open any research paper online or any research article, the next thing you're going to see is the introduction. The introduction lays the groundwork of basically, I will summarize into 3 big things. What is already known on this topic? Maybe for some reason, IMGs are matching less. Over the last 5 years, data has shown that IMGs are matching less. So many factors have been postulated in prior literature. One of the key factors in a paper that interviewed 200, again, I'm just making all of this up. I'm just making all of this up to give you how the structure of an introduction. One paper in 2018 surveyed 200 program directors in internal medicine who said that research is really important. However, studies have shown that IMGs are not engaging so much in research. This lays the foundation of what we want, why we are doing this entire topic. Then you talk about what gaps your research is hoping to fill in the literature, right? And after talking about the gaps, you then sort of like summarize in the end what the objectives of your paper are. So that's an introduction. An introduction, some journals can be very strict. And so the length of an introduction depends on the journal word count. So a journal would tell you 3,000 words for everything, including references. So you have to know how to be very concise in your introduction. Some journals would say 6,000 words is fine. And so you can have a lengthy introduction. I like to keep my introductions to 3, at most 4 paragraphs. The first paragraph talks about the general problem. The second paragraph talks about what has been done to address that problem and what hasn't been done yet. Third paragraph then talks about what we are hoping to do to address that problem. And the fourth paragraph just sort of like summarizes how we are going to do it and our main objectives. After you write your introduction, the methods part comes in. The methods basically is, where did you get your sample from? What is the number of your sample? Was it, how did you choose? What was the eligibility criteria for you to choose your sample? And what kind of analytical methods did you use? And what kind of analytical software did you use? What kind of statistical testing did you decide to do? So that summarizes the methods section. One thing I would say is that it doesn't have to be in that format, right? I know that you would think that we would write the introduction, do the methods, and then write the results, analyze the data, and then write the results, and then write the discussion. But usually, during the conceptualization phase, let's assume myself, Dr. Anthony, Dr. Ike Anthony, we're writing the paper with Dr. Kobe and Sapana. I would say to Sapana, here's this idea I have the data set for it. And I'm going to you do the literature review and see what gaps are in the literature for us to address. She comes back and tells me, and I say, okay, great. This is how I'm going to analyze it. I analyze it. And once I get my, I have my methods down, then I say, oh, I have the results, I have the tables and everything. And so, Sapana, Anthony, you can go ahead, start the introduction and write the discussion. But as a novice, that's what I would do. But now with experience, what I do is I think about every stage of my research. I come up with the journal that I'm going to submit it to before I even start. Because I've learned over time where I would be rejected, where I'll be accepted, or sometimes editors just shoot an email to me, say, hey, can you write a paper for us about this topic for the month of June? And so I already know I'm submitting it there. And so what that helps us with is that it targets our writing so that Sapana doesn't write 2,000 words in the introduction, and then we create another job for ourselves where we have to trim it down to 750 because the journal has a shorter word count. So now, introduction, methods, the next thing is your results. Talk about your findings. You put your tables there, you put your figures there.
I don't mean to interrupt. So
Sorry,
just what I'm saying in essence is identify the possible journals that you want to submit to, and then look at their rules to govern the number of the length of whatever you're going to add to each space, each section, and that guides you. So you probably look at the papers that have been published in those journals in the past, so it gives you a guide of, okay, this is the length, this is how they are structured, this is what is good. Amazing. Go ahead. We're all listening.
Yeah, thank you for the addition. And so the results section, you summarize your findings, tables, figures, everything goes in there. Like you talk about them there, not necessarily inserting your figures there. Then the discussion, to keep it short, the discussion is you try to explain your findings and compare and contrast it with maybe previous papers. So our study found out that individuals who had COVID-19 and who had COPD, within 30 days, they were readmitted for COPD. Other studies that were done, their findings were different. This is what explains our findings. We think that COVID vaccine has some sort of inflammatory property, whatever. So you explain that, you talk about your limitations of your study, you talk about the strengths of your study, but that all goes into your discussion and then you put a conclusion. Now, all of this is pretty much similar across journals. What is different is some journals will want you to capitalize each section. So the methods, write it in capital, make it all capitalized. Some journals would not want that. Some journals would want you to have it in italics. Some journals would want you to number it 1.0 introduction, the methods 2.0, the results 3.0, the discussion 4. So those things are the little differences that happens, and then the word count. So that's generally the structure of a paper. But after you do all of this, you then have to have a summary of everything, which is what we call abstracts. Abstracts is what summarizes everything. So for example, if the abstract the abstract is like a very brief 150 words to 250 to 250 words, where you summarize the objective of your research, the findings, the methods, and and the conclusion. Why are abstracts important? Abstracts are important to help the readers not waste their time. Imagine if you were interested, you were doing a systematic review of about COVID-19 vaccine, and you wanted to find out if this our paper on COVID-19 vaccine and asthma or COPD is relevant to your systematic review. It will not be nice to read 6,000 words to now find out that it's not relevant. I would have to discard it, right? And so an abstract just gives you this very quick glance at it. And maybe you are looking for papers that were done between 1997 to 2019, and our paper was done in 2020. It doesn't fit your eligibility for your study. You can see that in the abstract, and you just say, nope, this is not important for me, and you should have discarded. Abstracts also help release groundbreaking research, because the time that it would take for the manuscript to go through the journal, peer review, editing, and eventual publishing might be too long, right? And so sometimes authors and researchers are encouraged to have their findings put out there to the scientific community to learn from them. And the way they do this is through conferences. So you can then send your abstracts to whatever conference it is that is of your interest. That's one of the big indications for abstracts. And like I said, it varies. It varies. Some journals are very, very strict and would say just 150 words. And some journals would say up to 250 or 300 words.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So quick question. Now, many of us also want to go to conferences and present in conferences. Some of us have already done that. Dr. Rahman is in this group, and his 4 papers has been accepted in ASCO already. Congratulations, Dr. Rahman. I know you're in the group. Amazing. Dr. Endurance also has had a couple of papers. Question that have been presented in very notable conferences. Question I want to ask: does your abstract does your entire paper need to be ready before you can present in a journal, in a conference, or do you just make up your abstract, go to the conference, present, tick that box, then come back and begin to write your paper? How does it work? Walk us through.
So that's a very important question. Your abstract does not have to be, you do not have to have the complete work. You can do the methods, get the results, and summarize everything and put it into an abstract and submit to a conference. So you don't need the complete work. Now, having said that, what do you guys think would happen if you do a paper, you start a paper, get your abstract, the data set is publicly available. Everybody can download it. Again, this has happened to me before. And you go to your conference, present it, you're like, oh, I'm tired, I have to write my step 3, I have this ICU rotation next month, I can't, you don't have time. Or sometimes even the interest just diminishes. The interest just wanes and no one is even interested again because, it's out there already. And you open Google Scholar one day, or because you are interested in pulmonology, you're always looking at pulmonology topics. So Google Scholar sends you notifications about new research in pulmonology. And then one Monday morning, you just open your phone and you see that your topic, the same data set, has just been published in the Journal of Chest. And you're like, oh my
Someone
goodness.
has hacked your abstract.
It's gone. So I answered the question they're saying that, I, at the same time, I understand the plight of people who are just hearing about these opportunities for research 3-4 months before ERAS opens. And so and they haven't completed their steps. They have not started networking extensively. And so they're under pressure. And so they just churn out abstracts and just, I've done my abstracts, I'm fine. I understand that. But if you don't want someone to carry your idea, you have to go ahead and finish it. And it's okay when you're submitting to the journal, you just make sure you tell the journal that the findings of this paper have been submitted I've been presented as a poster at the annual American Public Health Association conference in 2022 or something. Most journals are fine with that. Some would not like it, but most journals are okay with that.
So, question I want to ask along the line of abstract, paper, journal, conclusion, and the rest. Now, many of us are trying to get our papers ourselves. I usually consider myself at every stage that I am as a newbie. How long does it take to write a manuscript? How long do you think it takes to write? I know it's a very naive question. Pardon my naiveness. Like I said, I don't know anything about research. How long will it take Dr. Sapana, who probably has never written one, or Dr. Izundu to put up a paper together for himself?
So just to clarify there, you mean how much is? Go ahead.
Yeah, for people that are applying in eras between now and September, it's like 6 months. For people that are applying for camps between now and November, it's probably like 8 months. At least, is this time good enough for me to apply? How long does it take me to write a paper? How long does it take the journals to process my paper? Sounds very naive, but a lot of us don't know these things.
So it's a loaded question. How long does it take to complete the manuscript? Depends on the team, the research team. It could take a week, it could take days. As long as the analysis is done, tables are all ready, results are all there. One person writes introduction, one person writes discussion, a senior author goes through it. So it varies. If it's a systematic review or meta-analysis, that can actually even drag even more. But the shortest time it's taken me, with residency, it's like, let's say, a week. And the longest time is when I don't have the skill set to do what needs to be done for the paper to be completed. And so I have to wait on someone.
Right.
Now, having said that, how long does it take for the manuscript to be go through journal process and then get published? It also varies. Some journals have a very quick, not quick, but a pretty shorter decision time. Some would say 3 weeks, 4 weeks. They tell you if they've accepted it or they're going to reject it. So and some journals take months. I've had a paper with a journal for 7 months and they sent it and said it's rejected. And I was like, you could have told me last year, So if people are applying, I think what Dr. Rahman, you said, what he did is amazing, right? So he's pushed out abstracts to ASCO. The good thing with ASCO, the conference, is that ASCO publishes its abstract online. So that's a very good one that now Dr. Rahman is going to have those things online just in time for the ERAS if they're applying this year. And so that was what I would recommend to folks. But at the same time, I also want to, have some papers out, try to make the work complete the work. But the time just varies. It varies. I can't tell. There are some journals, I would say it's journal dependent. Some journals would 35 days, 60 days, they get back to you and you can, respond to them, make the changes and the edits. But some journal, I don't know, with COVID, it's kind of like a bit, it's been slower from what I've realized, it's been slower.
Now that we were mentioning journals, brings us to this point. Many of us have written something in the past, either in our masters or when we were in med schools, we've done public health programs. A lot of us here don't even know that we can publish those things. And this is part of the reason why we're having these scientific sessions, to tell people that you've had archives in the past, things that you've done that you could actually really publish, some interesting cases that you've seen in your med school or your rotations. Now, let's assume I've, listened to Edwards and Dr. Henry, and I have this project I did when I was doing my master's and I feel like publishing it. How do I identify a journal? Because I've heard so many blogs, journals, pages. What are the journals out there? How do we identify them?
I think for the purposes of, for us in medicine, we want journals that are indexed on PubMed. That's one of the key things, is it on PubMed? But it depends on the topic.
Before you go deep, because I like demystifying this thing. A lot of people don't know what is PubMed and what is journal and what is the difference between a journal and PubMed. Someone asked me this today, are we going to publish it in PubMed? And I'm like, oh, PubMed is not a journal, but let me allow you to talk about that.
Okay, that's actually something I actually haven't thought about that before, but a journal is basically like, consider it a publishing, like an archive, or a publishing house, sort of. So journal have collections of articles that, depending on how frequently they release issues, they publish this, they sort of like publish what researchers have sent to them. So you have journals across this multiple disciplines in social sciences, medicine, business, whatever. In our case, the Journal of Asthma, for example, is going to be, an archive online journal where all information related to asthma, treatment, prevention, whatever, can be found. And so if you have a topic on asthma, if you have a topic on any, prevention of asthma in children or adults, whatever, you're going to send that, such a place is, is where you send your work to, and then they can then disseminate it to the scientific community and to the public. So it's sort of like a warehouse for research articles to where they are collected and then disseminated to improve the literature and improve our science and treatment. New information on interventions, advancements in treatment journals are a way for that information to be spread and distributed to the public. Now, the whole idea about like PubMed, Scopus, and Web of Science, I'm not really sure how to describe those things, but PubMed is this sort of platform where journals are indexed with. So the journal is indexed in PubMed, and PubMed is, I'm not too sure how to take this, Dr. Kobe, but my understanding is that journals have, like, they go through this process where they have to be indexed at like through this national, like this archive, huge collection. Right. And so PubMed is one of them. It's a leading one. That is the most common one that most researchers would go to. And so if you have an article that is published in a journal indexed in PubMed, it carries more weight. It takes a lot. There's a lot of requirements that a journal has to meet before they can be indexed on PubMed. And so most things are on PubMed. They are considered to be some of high quality to some extent. Not right. Everything, but to most things.
Yeah, the way I see PubMed is like the National Library of Medicine, NLM. It's like a repository where, like a library, and like an online library where these journals, when they are done publishing, they go and they archive it, they place it on that repository. Dr. Onyeka, you've done so well. We've done beyond our time. We'll open the floor to anybody. Please, if you want to ask questions, just introduce yourself briefly and then ask some questions. We're going to take 10, 15 minutes of questions. Any question on the structure of a paper, you could go as simple as, and no question is, let me use the word useless. Be free to ask any question. We want to demystify it as much as possible. How do I come up with the structure of my paper? The floor is yours. Dr. Zoe, thank you so much. We'll appreciate if you can put your camera, but I know that many people are either walking or on call. They may not be able to put their camera. Dr. Zoe, over to you.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
I'm getting ready for work.
Yeah, if you're putting your camera, I have to put you on spotlight. Give me 1 second.
I'm not putting the camera on
Right,
because I'm getting ready for night shift.
Okay.
All right. So I'm Zoe. I'm first year resident, but going into seconds. My question is this. Thanks, Dr. Onyeka, for hosting today's meeting. My question for you is, I'm sure you've gone to the poster presentation. What typically makes you stand out during those poster presentations? Like, what can one do to stand out, to make their paper stand out, or because not like for us, they do competitions and they rank us. So I wanted to know what to do to stand out.
Thank you, Zoe, for that question. I think it depends, right? I think one thing that makes, like, when I've gone to like conferences and presented posters, some of the things it's mostly the topic. You know, I think I did one poster like looking at how people with depression and anxiety use smartphones and mobile apps, and you know, we're in this age of digital health, and so that sort of like drew a lot of people. So I think the topic really, if it's catchy, if it's something new. For example, ChatGPT is on everyone's, like, every researcher is trying to see how to do something related to ChatGPT. And so if you do something like that, ChatGPT was just launched in November, right? And so if you do something about ChatGPT and cancer or something, and you put it on a poster, it's going to attract a lot of attention. Now, the other thing is the originality of the work. How important, if there is something that is a gray area, let's say, do we screen people that do people who are like between the ages of 27 and 45, do they get the HPV vaccines or something? Because the standard, the criteria, the guidelines for, you know, maybe vaccination doesn't cover those people. So it's a gray area that people really want to know that, oh, what should be done? And you do some research about that. That would also stand out. So it's about the topic. And then the other thing, if you want to stand out as well, if in the sense of like you want to meet people during the poster session, you know, I make sure I stand there during the time and like deliver a very good presentation. I practice and practice and practice what I'm going to say and answer most of the questions. That's what I would say. I have never, like, you know, won any poster award or anything, but I would think it's the originality of the work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Zoe, I will add one or two things from the little experiences I've had in the past. I ran a research department for a particular hospital, and we also did a research competition amongst the residents when I was a research coordinator for the program. One of the things that we used is how first attractive your poster is. Your poster has to stand out in terms of the depth of the color. So if I'm walking past your poster, it has to attract me, it has to attract the panel, it has to look well organized in sequence. Introduction, if you're just doing abstract poster, you're doing a full paper poster, and then your conclusion has to be legible. The sizes of your words has to be legible. Now, most of the time, most faculties use the hospital print press to produce the same print, so you don't really have control over those. Another thing also is the clarity of the flow of your ideas. So I should be able to, in 5 minutes, look at your poster and immediately tell what you were trying to do, what you did, and your results. Simple, without searching for your result and your conclusion, without searching for what is she trying to do, what is her objective, where is the result segment. It should be as just the way you look at this, you know, this is Dr. Yeka, this is Edwards. It has to be that simple, and then it has to be appealing to the scientific world. So something very noble, because it's scoring to different grades. The scientific scoring, that is how deep you went to search your data and get your data, and how that data is meaningful to that particular setting, either the hospital or what you're trying to sell, or the particular team that they have for that particular clinical presentation. So those different categories are what they use to. I don't know if I answered a little. Before I give the next person, there's a little complaint that the Zoom meeting maxed out 100, over 100 and something people are still waiting to log in. But I don't know why. There's an IT person that knows how to expand it to beyond 100. I don't know why maxed out. It's actually paid, but I really don't know why maxed out 100. So my apologies. We're going to send the recording to the group so that people can, you know, watch it later. But it's not. I didn't intentionally max it out at 100. I want more people to benefit from this. Dr. Amaka, your hands have been.
I'm not trying to talk, but excuse me. I think the reason why is because it's private. Like if there's a university type Skype, you can go up to the maximum. So the maximum you have is 100.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I see. We'll try and make amends to that and probably get a Zoom subscription that has more capacity moving forward. I really apologize to everyone who was not able to make it and who wanted to make it to this conference. Thank you. Dr. Amaka, keep it brief. Dr. Amaka, you can unmute yourself if you are not hearing me. Dr. Toro, I see your hands up.
Okay, yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. If you want to put your camera on, we'll put you on.
My camera is on.
Okay, let me see if I can find you. Gallery. All right, you could keep talking. I'll put you on the spotlight.
Okay, yeah. So what I wanted to ask was, so if you were working probably with an organization and then you find something interesting and you feel, okay, I actually think this is a problem we could write a paper on and come up with solutions or probably propose some policies that could help reduce that problem, right? I wouldn't say I'm new into the research thing, but I actually feel, okay, this is something we could actually work on and it could solve problems in the community. How can you go about to say, okay, this is the problem, and I think this is the kind of method we could use to go about that paper? I don't know if my question is clear. Because
Okay.
because from the session, from the things Dr. Henry said, there are so many things that are running through my head. I'm like, oh, this is something I think I would like to do, but how would I know what is right for that kind of topic? Yeah.
Dr. do we leave it to your domain?
Yeah, I think I will answer this, and as much as I want to stay, I have to log off this meeting to join another meeting, and I'm just texting them. So very nice question. So you come to the part where we're looking at study design and methods, right? So it depends on what you want to answer. So let's say you want to answer a question about, we are finding that people who are not, like, let's say something about rehospitalizations. Was somebody rehospitalized? Somebody was admitted, people with asthma or people with like renal failure or cancer survivors or whatever population, they are getting readmitted. Like we want to look at readmission rates within 30 days of being discharged. That's our outcome. You already have a data set of all of these folks when they were hospitalized, and you want to find out what factors predicts being hospitalized, rehospitalized within 30 days after discharge. Is that clear to everybody?
Yes.
Okay. So I didn't catch the person's name, but the question you're asking, I would have to.
My name is Amaka. My name is Amaka.
Okay, Amaka. I would have to like give a very simple answer, but it's actually, we need to understand like what kind of research methods are available. And then I would then pose the question back to you, and you probably would be able to do a good job for it. So in that case, you want to like create, have you heard of the thing called PICO, P-I-C-O or P-E-C-O, is your population intervention. If it's PECO, P-E, the E is going to be exposure, right? And then C is your control group, and O is your outcome. We have our outcome here being rehospitalization within 30 days. Our population is people with asthma. Our exposure is, for this, let's say people with asthma who got the COVID vaccine when the last time they were hospitalized, something, or some asthma vaccine. And we are trying to test this asthma vaccine, whether it really helps, right? And so some people got the asthma vaccine when they were hospitalized, some people didn't get it. And you then run an analysis. What kind of analysis do you do? In this case, because your outcome is a binary outcome, meaning it's two categories. You were either hospitalized or you were not. That's what the binary outcome is. You either, in your mortality, you either die or you live. You use a logistic regression. A logistic regression is an analysis that is used when the outcome is a binary outcome, and what you then report as your estimate is going to be odds ratios. So that you will now be saying For everybody, for all asthma patients who were hospitalized, those who had the vaccine had 0.45 odds of being rehospitalized, meaning they had lower odds of being rehospitalized within 30 days. That is, that is for a binary outcome. Sometimes you're reading a paper and they said we did a linear regression. What that means is that the outcome was a continuous variable, a variable that can take any number from 0 to infinity. So let's say we are looking for, amongst all of us here, we want to see if living in the United States versus not living in the United States for over 5 years, how does it affect our serum creatinine? Serum creatinine can take any value from 0 to infinity. In statistics, I know in clinical sense it cannot, but from 0 to infinity in statistics. So in that case, we do a linear regression. There is more to it that I'm not saying. I apologize, but maybe we'll have a session with Dr. Okobi where I go through like basic research methods, when to do a regression, when to do chi-square, when to do ANOVA, and all that kind of stuff. And I'll probably be in a better position to explain it.
Absolutely. We're going to do several sessions. There's one of the sessions that's upcoming where we're going to go into research method and data analysis. That data analysis is a key component. Okay, so you need to understand, how do I look at data and how do I analyze it and how do I interpret the result? What does a z-score mean? What does a p-value mean? What does we're going to have a session. Dr. Onyeka, I want to be very respectful of your time. Thank you so much for this session. There's so many questions. I will try to stay behind and answer so many of them on your behalf. I've seen comments in the group. Thank you so much, Dr. Rina, for your comments. All the seniors that joined us, from Dr. Joey, Dr. Sisi, Dr. Gibson is here. He's a great friend of mine. And so many other people, PGY1, PGY2, and people that are in fellowship and attendings. Thank you so much. We'll let Dr. Onyeka go because of his time. I told him I'm not going to keep you more than 8 o'clock. This is 8:11. And then we could talk in the group house. I'm going to stop the recording because the scientific session is over. A new stop recording. Dr. Onyeka, thank you so much. Is he still there?